Some days are good.
Clean Getaway by Nick Stone. Chapter 2. Pay the Bill. The trouble really started 6 months back during those weird 3 weeks of school between Thanksgiving and winter break. Scoob's got no idea why, but over the course of that stretch, Bryce Benedict, a kid Scoob used to be friends with until he started playing footy ball and got too big for his britches, Gmaw likes to say, started picking on Shanice's little brother Drake. Drake has epilepsy, which was never a big deal until Bryce's antics began. Things started pretty light. Bryce would make unnecessary detours past Scoob, Shanice, and Drake's table in the cafeteria to tap Drake on the back of the head as he'd shout, "Sup, Drakey Drake," loud enough for the whole room to hear. After a few days of this, the tapping turned to shoving, turned to smacking. There was one morning Bryce hit so hard, Drake cried out in pain. The nearest teacher hadn't been paying attention. If she had been, Bryce probably wouldn't have done it. But when she turned to see what happened, Bryce was gone, and Drake said nothing. So no one else said anything either. The following day, Bryce cornered Drake in the hallway to taunt him. Scoob arrived just as Drake's arms jerked of their own accord, and he dropped all the books he was holding. Of course, old Bryce found this, and Shanice's protective punch in the chest, hilarious. He shoved Drake's shoulder hard and walked off just as Scoob rushed over to help Shanice and Drake with the books. As they gathered everything, Scoob could tell Drake was fighting with everything he had to keep from crying. Shanice was crying. For the first time in his life, Scoob experienced a violent urge. He wanted to smack Bryce upside his fat head. "Whew," Gmaw says as Scoob relays the story to her over an early dinner. They're at a place called Damn Yankees, and the lemon pepper wings truly are smoking, just like the menu says. Decor's a bit country. Rodeo posters and horseshoes and cowboy hats all over the walls, lassos and saddles hanging from the ceiling. There's even a mounted bull's head, massive horns menacingly outstretched. "Can't blame you, Scoob-a-Doob," Gmaw continues. Scoob sighs, grateful some grown-ups in his life seem to understand. "I knew you'd get it, Gmaw," because she always does. "What'd Drake have to say?" Gmaw asked. He shrugged it off, said, "He's just being a bully," which made me even madder. "I bet. Hard seeing someone you care about rush that kind of thing off, ain't it?" Scoob nods. It really is. As the days wore on, Bryce's taunting got more intense. One day after school, Shanice confided in Scoob that Drake hadn't been sleeping real well, that he'd been having bad dreams, and she was pretty sure they had to do with Bryce picking on him, that he'd been having more seizures, despite taking his medicine like he was supposed to. That's when I started noticing that Drake would, blank out at random times, Scoob said to Gmaw. There was even a day someone was talking to him at the lunch table, and he didn't respond. Just sat staring straight ahead. People had looked around at each other and started whispering, and on Drake sat, perfectly still, blinking, blinking, blinking. Bryce passed by and hit him, and Drake's whole body lurched forward like a board, which Bryce thought was hilarious. Scoob's eyes narrow as the anger begins to simmer again. He pointed one of his fat, pink fingers at Drake and laughed, imitating Drake's blinks. "Looks like he's having one of his seizures," he said. "Did air quotes and everything." Scoob shakes his head. Gmaw shakes hers too. Then he said, "Too bad it's not the type where he shakes and his tongue falls out." And he stuck his big, ugly tongue out and pretended to convulse. Shanice jumped up and said something I won't repeat. And then Bryce looked at her like the evil villains do in the cartoons just before they hurt people. When he took a step toward her, Scoob sighs, "I just lost it, Gmaw. Just kinda snapped." Scoob will never forget hearing Miss Manasmith gasp as he leapt from his seat, hopped the table, and tackled Bryce. The end of what exactly? Gmall's eating raw oysters. Scoob shuts his eyes as she picks up a shell and tips the glob of gross into her now snaggletooth mouth. She removed her partial. The thought of the false teeth currently chilling in their purple glitter container inside Gmall's purse almost grosses Scoob out as much as the oysters. Scoob shudders and takes a sip of sweet tea to clear his head. Sorry? What was the question? Gmall smiles. You said the fight with Bryce, the bonehead, was the beginning of the end. The end of what? Oh, Scoob says, lowering his eyes to his near-empty plate. The end of, well, Dad's faith in me, I guess. Not that Dad would listen to Scoob when Scoob tried to explain why he did it. You think a police officer will care about you defending a friend when they toss you in jail for aggravated assault? Dad said on the way home from school to begin Scoob's 3-day suspension. You can't react violently to someone else's words, especially someone like Bryce. When boys like you, he pointed to the brown back of Scoob's hand, hit boys like him, he opened his own hand and pointed to his pale palm. The punishment is harsher, and the fallout infinitely worse, William. Scoob will never forget Dad's look of disappointment. Seems a tad extreme, don't you think? Gmall says, plucking Scoob back to the present. He shakes his head. Not really. He used to tell me he had faith in me all the time, but now he acts like I'm some hardened delinquent. It's like he thinks there's no hope for me or something. Won't even look me in the eye anymore, especially since that other incident. The one with the computers? Yep. Gmall doesn't press further, which Scoob is thankful for. He really doesn't want to get into that right now. He takes another swig of sweet tea to swallow the little ball that's risen in his throat. This is the first time he's spoken aloud about the way Dad's been to him lately. Kinda makes him want to cry. But he won't. Though he can totally feel Gmall looking at him, and he knows from the way the hairs on the back of his neck are rising, she's doing that thing where she tries to see inside his head. If he looks at her now, she'll see all that other mess. Scoob's frustration over the fact that Bryce wasn't punished. His annoyance that all the teachers look at him like he's a lit stick of dynamite now, despite the fact that Bryce is still terrorizing people. No, not Drake anymore. His anger over the unfairness of the whole situation, swirling around behind Scoob's eyes, and she'll drag it all out of him. But he doesn't want to tell her any of that. Right now, Scoob just wants to get back in Gmall's fancy new drivable home and go. Go and never look back. He pulls himself up straight and lifts his chin. That's when he notices an older white man in a baseball cap, a few tables over, looking between him and Gmall like they're some alien beings. Yeah, kids at school used to ask questions when they'd see Scoob and Gmall together. He's black and she's white, but this feels different. Less about curiosity and more disdainful. And that guy's not the only one. Bouncing his eyes around the room, Scoob realizes a bunch of people are looking at him and Gmall funny. One lady he makes eye contact with openly sneers at him, like he's done something wrong. Like he is something wrong, even. It's the same way Dad looked at him when he stepped into Mr. Armand's office that first time after the fight. His hands tighten around his damp glass of tea, which he'd really like to pick up and lob at the woman. Give her a reason to look at him the way she is. Gmall's warm hand squeezes Scoob's other one, which is resting on the table in a fist. He locks eyes with her, and she smiles. His chest unclenches a little. What do you say we blow this popsicle stand? Huh? She asked him. We've eaten our fill. Now time to eat some road. Scoob nods and grins. Sounds disgusting, Gmall, but okay. As they make their way outside, Gmaul turns to him and says, "These small towns are really something, aren't they? Bass ackwards, as your G-pop used to say. But that's all right." She doesn't say anything else, and Scoob doesn't respond. But as they pull away from Damn Yankees, it hits him. He's pretty sure Gmaul didn't pay the bill.
'Cause some days are good and some years